Okay, continuing on the books about VIP protection, and there's numerous books written about the Secret Service from the early days right up to fairly current times. Um, and I have reviewed several of them. And I think it's worth reviewing this particular one today because he makes a lot of very, very interesting points. And one thing I gained from talking to Secret Service agents and also reading these books is how similar the task is. Because in commercial security, we always work long hours because obviously the guy is paying for his protection and it's always a consideration. So they made best use of the manpower. And you work, the usual was 12 hours, and I've worked a double shift. I've done a 24-hour shift. And sometimes you work, if you're working with a work hard, play hard type of executive, you are up an hour early, before he does, and you go to bed an hour after he does, doing certain drills. And if he's working a long, long day, a 19-hour, 20-hour day, you're working longer. So you don't get much sleep. And especially when traveling, you do an advance, and the guys on the advance then have to receive the main party, and no one's had any sleep, so and so on. And I always kind of in the past thought the Secret Service, with tremendous resources, it's a huge agency. Um, the guys wouldn't work as long hours, but I found that they work to the same principle, that they you know, rather like the Apache, they ride the horse, they flog it, and then eat it. They really get the most out of the guys, and they work long hours. And again, on traveling and doing advances, even more so. Anyway, within arm's length by Dan Emmett. Um, he entered the training for the Secret Service in 1983, and he makes a lot of very, very interesting and important points in the book, and I've got some to talk about. One section he talks about the way they used to do things, what he calls the formal follow-up cars, which had running boards. I actually saw the car that was used in Dallas, Secret Service car. It's in a museum, and I was very interested to see it. And that had the running boards, and the backup cars had the running boards, and the agents used to perch on them for when they were going through crowds and so on. And in more recent years, they stopped doing that because they have ballistically protected vehicles more. So that's an aspect. He talks about it, and it's kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit. Another thing he says, the Secret Service has not changed a great deal in its methods. It used more agents and now had jets and armored limos to move POTUS, President of the United States, about, but it's still primarily only trained for the lone gunman scenario, or perhaps a sniper. That was the way the service saw it, and just as the service retained its line of use of revolvers until after almost every other agency had gone in law enforcement and transitioned to semi-automatic pistols, that was the way it would remain for a very long time. So it's very critical in that regard. All bureaucracies are slow, and Secret Service doesn't differ in any way from that. So after working at the Charlotte office and then New York, he applied for the CAT school. CAT is the counter assault team, and he had the idea of going on that. He had a military background in the Marines and infantry, and he thought he'd fit in well there. So he eventually was able to get a place on the CAT school, and it was a 3-week program at the J.J. Rowley Training Centre out at Beltsville. Very intense, very physical, particularly the firearms. They had to qualify with the long gun, the sub gun, the pistol and the shotgun. And the qualifications were much more rigid, much more demanding than for the usual Secret Service agents. So, and it had a failure rate. If you failed to qualify, then you were off the course completely. So it was pretty demanding, and training back then was pretty tough. When he'd gone through his agent training, he in '83, he said there was an instructor that they used to use cast metal training pistols for the disarms and stuff. And one of the instructors, if you were inattentive, he'd throw it at your head. And most of the guys were able to dodge this, but one guy didn't, and he was laid out with it. And nothing was said. I mean, big difference to the way things are done now. You know, harsh words will get you taken out of a training role. Another point, just before we go back to CAT, is that the Secret Service has a dual role. It does investigations into fraud and forgery and the currency, as well as protection. And I've always thought that that's incompatible. Really, you should specialize in one thing or the other. And to me, the Secret Service should just do protection, and there should be another agency, part of the Treasury, because the Secret Service now DHS, Homeland Security, who do the currency stuff. Well, that's just my idea anyway. So he graduates CAT school and then is waiting to be assigned to the CAT team back in New York, and he's got a supervisor there who decides he doesn't want him to do it, that he's the boss and what he says goes. And this is quite common, not only in the Secret Service, but in other agencies and indeed in large organizations, that people have these fiefdoms and are very, very conscious of position and rank and influence and so on. Anyway, the White House decided they needed him, and the orders came, and the supervisor was very upset. But then Mr. Emmett goes to Washington, and he's on the CAT team. And back then, the CAT was regarded as a kind of outsider, and they weren't integrated into the PPD, the Presidential Protective Detail. And it was at the whim of the supervisor of the PPD whether they were even included in a particular movement. The concept of CAT is that the protection is, you've got, in particularly in a mobile situation, you've got the limo, and you've got advance and follow-up cars, and that's known as the package. And under an attack, they protect the VIP within that package and do a withdrawal. The CAT's idea is to attack the attack, so they are coming from outside of the package and are able to attack the attack by using tactical movements in that way, allowing the agents within the package to safely evacuate the VIP. So that's the concept of it. And they decided it would be a good idea to all train together. So they were at President Bush's residence, his personal residence up in Maine, and decided to do an exercise. And there was a nominal attack, and the CAT responded and so on. And Dan Emmett runs around a corner and gets shot. It was blanks, but got shot by a PPD agent. Now he's wearing a jumpsuit with massive US Secret Service logos on it and police lettering and so on, so on. And this obviously was a big problem. But the guys on the detail were obviously deficient in their identification friend and foe in the event of an attack. So that had to be addressed. One of the movements they did in the CAT was to Korea, and there was Clinton wanted to walk in this exposed area in Korea, so that was a very high risk situation, and it was what the CAT was trained for. Another thing he talks about is one of the things they do is to follow Air Force One, either on arrival or takeoff, very closely. And the old Air Force One was a 707 aircraft, and when they got the new one, the 747, the first time they followed it on takeoff, it actually blew the windscreen out and nearly incinerated the agents. Different engines on the aircraft, so they had to modify their procedures a little bit on that. Clinton was a bit of a runner, and he decided he wanted to go running, and the Secret Service made a running track for him at the White House, but he wanted to run in the public. And you know, the old political ego at work, and so they needed a full detail to run with him, and they found that they didn't have enough fit guys, enough runners on the PPD, which is amazing. I mean, if you're not fit enough to run with a VIP, really you're not fit. So guys from the CAT were recruited to run with the president. And Clinton, being the guy he was, he never gave them any warning, so he'd just appear from the residence. If he was wearing his suit, then he wasn't running, and the things were normal. He went to the Oval Office. But if he was in his running gear, the agents had to be ready to run with him. If they were in suits, they'd be running in suits. So the agents never knew what to wear. And all he needed to do was to phone down from the residence to the ops room. But probably never even occurred to him. Later on, Dan Emmett became an instructor down at FLETC, Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, and he decided to institute a quite severe training regime for PT. Even though that wasn't his job, he was there as a kind of a proctor for the Secret Service candidates. FLETC has their own physical training setup, but it was additional, and it was very hard. It was a very demanding run every day that he set up. But in the end, the guys, it became quite a status thing that they were proud of being able to do this. And actually, one of the chaps who's a member of our forum and who did our instructor course in America, he was Secret Service, and he had trained at FLETC under Dan Emmett, and said it was every bit of what he said in the book, that he did generate this tremendous esprit de corps, and most of the guys realised that it was in their interest to be as fit as possible. So really great book. Bit of a different insight into the Secret Service than most of the guys wrote. Very few of them are as critical of the Secret Service's procedures as he was. He does kind of tell it warts and all. And again, I really enjoyed reading, and it's well worth putting on the bookshelf.